All right, I think we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday. Happy day after Easter. Hope you guys had an awesome and blessed Easter. And yes, I do celebrate Easter. He is risen. He is risen indeed. So tonight we're going to do a little bit of question and answer. I'll do my best to answer it on the Instagram page. I'm using my phone right now. But just if you can, hold your questions until I finish up, because people had submitted some questions that follow me. So I want to answer those first, and then if I have a little bit of time, I'll answer some questions that you might have as well. We're going to get ready to be started here in about 4 minutes. If you're watching right now, just go ahead and say hello. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know too if you can hear me. I've had some problems with my mic in the past, so I keep switching it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So let me know if you can hear me okay. I'd appreciate that. All right. So question and answer, some of the things that we're going to go over today that people had submitted in advance as far as questions. We're going to talk about, let's see here, saliva testing. We're going to talk about red light therapy. And also someone had said, hey, my lipoprotein little a is here. Do I need to be concerned about it? What do you do in order to reduce it? And then I'm going to talk about castor oil, okay? I'm going to give you my perspective when it comes to that, because my perspective is probably not what people want, because there's no like one thing that's going to move the needle, especially when you're trying to get your health back. It'll be interesting. I hope it is, at least for you guys. But then if I have some time, I'll try to answer some questions from Instagram, and then I'll see if I can answer some questions from Facebook. For a better experience, you can head on over to Facebook. You can head on over to YouTube as well, where we're streaming live. Also on the Rumble platform, we're streaming live, so you'll be able to see see the slides, which helps quite a bit for the experience, but also for your learning experience as well. Don't forget, we have the inflammation talk that's coming up tomorrow night. Got a lot of people registered for it. I'm excited. So if you're from the Chicagoland area, make sure you get registered for that awesome event. It will make a lot of sense to you. So guys, enjoy. We're getting ready to start here in about 2 minutes or so. And again, make sure that you say hello, and then also let me know where you're watching from. I would appreciate that. See, I see some thumbs up. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for doing that. And then we'll try to take some questions from the platform that I can see up here on my screen. But if I catch one on Instagram, I'll do my best to answer that as well. So sometimes people yell at me like, why are you not taking my questions? Sometimes I can't see that and I skip over it. So I apologize, obviously, in advance. Okay. Inflammation talk tomorrow night. You can go to the top of the page and get registered for that if you are from the Chicagoland area. As far as working with people remotely, I'm probably going to take that down at the end of the week, just because the scheduling and being busy and things like that. So, yeah, I know I can't help everybody, but I really do. I really want to, but I also can't kill myself at the same time. All right, so one more minute. We got a lot of people that have joined us on Facebook and also on YouTube. So we're going to talk again about red light therapy, castor oil, lipoprotein little a. Talk about, I think I already said this, red light therapy, saliva testing, and things like that. And I'm going to give you my perspective when it comes to that, especially. So we just finished up. Yesterday was our last day of the You Don't Know Squat Challenge. Hope you guys did it. I did it literally almost. I did skip a couple of days, almost every single day. It was incredible. And my squat actually got better. And I had a great time doing that too. So you can go to my page and you can see the video if you want. It doesn't matter when you do it, just do it for 30 days and just see how much better you actually get as far as your squat mobility and things like that. Remember, specific adaptation to impose demands, what's called. Place a demand on the body and watch it start to adapt. All right, so I'll let you know when we're going to be taking some questions. Make sure again that you say hello, give me a wave, and let me know where you're watching from. We're getting ready here to start in 5 seconds. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday evening and happy day after Easter. I hope you guys had a great time celebrating Easter and also really celebrating the reason why we celebrate Easter. That's the most important thing as well. So if you are watching right now, I know that we have a lot of people that have joined us on Facebook, a lot of people watching on Instagram, on YouTube. Just give me a wave. Say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. I know Georgia from snowy South Dakota. Oh man, it's snowing. We're supposed to, I think it's snow tomorrow. Oh man, I love these Midwest spring, I guess is what we're in, but it's kind of debatable as far as that. So if you can hear me and you're watching on our platform, just let me know if you can hear me and let me know if you can actually hear my voice, because we've had some problems with our mic in the past. Tonight, we're going to do a question and answer live. Just hold your questions for just a second. So I'm going to go over some questions that people had submitted to me prior. I asked them on Instagram, and people submitted some really awesome questions that I think that's going to interest you as well. So tonight, only because I just didn't have as much time, being a holiday weekend and whatnot, to come up with the topic, is we're going to do a question and answer. So you guys just think this, when I do a question and answer, being maybe a little bit lazy as far as my preparation is concerned, I apologize. I'll see if I can come up with a great topic next week. But if you have a topic for next week, just go ahead and put that in the comments. If you can do that, I would appreciate that. I was even thinking about going over maybe yeast and Crohn's disease or something like that. I have a note as far as that to help people with that, especially because a lot of people just don't get a whole lot of help when it comes to that. So tonight we're going to do a question and answer live. Here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about some questions that people submitted. If I have some time, we'll also go to our platform and answer some questions on Facebook and also on Instagram if I can find it. If I can find your question, and also on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you so much for saying, hey, we can hear you, Dennis. I appreciate that from YouTube. And Nancy, thank you so much for watching me. I am hearing that there's an Iowa girls basketball game that's going on. People say, do you watch TV? I'm like, no, I don't watch anything. I watched a little bit of a college basketball game yesterday. That was the first time I pretty much have watched anything, any kind of college sports or any kind of sporting event for probably about 6 months as well. So guys, question and answer tonight. Coming up tomorrow night at our office at the Wellness Way Yorkville, we have our in-person inflammation event. Now guys, let me just tell you this. I have a lot of people who reach out to me on my personal Facebook page. They call our office. We're not going to tell you anything different. Get to the inflammation event. I probably had about 4 people just last week say, hey, do you do blood work? I want to get my blood work done. And I'm like, I don't know what needs to be done. Come to the inflammation talk first and foremost, so we can begin the process of trying to figure out where we should start with those things. Just remember this, people say, I want blood work done. I'm like, we're going to test things a whole heck of a lot deeper than just doing a CBC and a CMP and then saying you're fine. Because how many people do you know has said you're fine? Doctor's like, you're fine. Everything looks good. That's fire department type of testing. We don't do fire department testing. We do carpenter testing, which is looking much deeper. So guys, inflammation is the spark that leads to every single disease that's out there. You have to learn where it's coming from and how to get it under control, especially. We always talk about physical, mental, and chemical. If you are talking about problems with weight loss resistance, cancer, problems with your hormones that can lead to infertility, thyroid disease, arthritis and joint pain, absolutely huge, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune conditions, hormone balance. I hate saying that we don't balance hormones as much as we're saying we're finding what's causing the hormones to start to do this, start to correct it. Because I will always say this, there is a God, and it's not me. The body is so much more wise than any doctor that's out there. And that's why we want to work with that power and not with the the power that a doctor has in prescribing more and more drugs and medication. You can go to the top of the page if you're on Instagram. You go to the top of my page if you're watching on Facebook, either on Exemplify Health Center or at Dr. Nathan Thompson, and you'll be able to register for that event. This is for people who are within the Chicagoland area. Now, if you are not in the Chicagoland area, but you're within the contiguous 48 states, here's your last call, because I'm probably going to be taking this down only because of just because of my time. Okay, just because of my time. Our inflammation webinar, you can go to the top page, you can watch that webinar, or you can watch it right now on demand, or you can even watch it. Watch that webinar on, I think, a Tuesday or a Saturday at like 9 a.m., whatever time that you're on. But make sure that you have a whole entire hour to dedicate to that, because what you'll see a link that you can schedule a discovery call with me, and make sure that you have that, because the only way to get that link is to make it through the inflammation talk. But that discovery call is an opportunity for you to be able to fill out some work, send me your labs, and for me to talk to you one-on-one and say, here's where we need to start. It's so important because so many people today don't have the right direction. And so our webinar, this is for people within the contiguous 48 states, especially only because we just don't have the ability to be able to test in other countries as of yet. Yes, this includes Canada. Everyone's like, when are you coming to Canada? I'm like, as soon as Trudeau leaves, then we may be into Canada as well. So watch that webinar. Whether you want to be a patient or not, I know that it will help you tremendously, and you will learn a ton. But it also gives you a different perspective about why the body doesn't make mistakes, especially. Now, before we take a couple of questions, here's the cool thing. If you've been following us for a while, you know that we've had a few challenges coming up, and we just finished up in March our You Don't Know Squat Challenge. Thank you very much for people who participated in that. I really appreciate you doing that. But I did it, just guys, so you know that when we do a challenge, I do it right along with you. In fact, I think that's the reason why I actually say why I do a challenge is because I want to make sure that I'm staying on target when it comes to my health. So we did in March our You Don't Know Squat Challenge. So it was 10 to 12 minutes of working on mobility every single day, finishing up in a wonderful squat hold for as long as you can hold it. And I figured this out because I finished it up on Saturday. Sunday, I took the day off just because it was Easter. I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel like doing it. But I figured this out. I worked on my mobility just in March for 500 minutes, and I spent 90 minutes holding a squat position. So 500 minutes working on mobility and 90 minutes of holding a squat position. And guess what? I got better over the course of 30 days. Now, 500 minutes, you're like, oh, that sounds like a lot. Not really, because it was like 20 minutes a day is about what I spent. I did above and beyond what I even asked you to do. So I'm a little bit of an overachiever. I did quite a bit, but you'll be amazed at how much better I got. And 500 minutes sounds like a lot, but it's not, guys. A lot of you, if you took an account of the time that you spend, a lot of you just spend so much time wasting it, mindlessly going down a scroll hole with social media on TikTok and things like that. And I spent 90 minutes in the month of just holding a squat position. Now, what am I doing right now? I'm sitting and I'm undoing all of that. Yet doing that for 90 minutes undid a lot of the damage that I do just by sitting for long periods of time. So go back, you can go to Instagram. If you go to Instagram, the top of the page, YouTube has it, Facebook has it, you'll be able to see that. And just please start working on your mobility. And if you did that for 30 days, all of March, give me a thumbs up and let me know that you did that, because I will give you a shout out if you did that, especially. Now, this comes from Vince Lombardi. It's one of my favorite quotes of all times is this, because a lot of times people will say, oh, I couldn't do it because of this. Okay. Now you may have actually a very good reason, but just remember this. You can have reasons or you can have results, but you can never have both. Okay. And Vince Lombardi actually said this during the Super Bowl. He walked in, he said, gentlemen, in the next 3 hours, you're either going to have reasons or you're going to have results, but you won't be able to have both. And so if you messed up or you stopped for whatever reason, just get back into it. That's what I can say, is just get back into it. And just keep going. Just don't give up. Don't give up. And this is one of the biggest things that I have learned in my life, and this is why we have these t-shirts up at our store on Bonfire, where it says, nobody cares, work harder. Nobody cares, work harder. Okay. Now I care. Some people will care, but so many people don't understand how much work it truly takes in order to achieve a certain result. Okay. Very few people actually know how much work, and they give up so quickly. You know, one of the things is that so many people quit at things when they don't see their desired result after like 1 day or 5 days, or, you know, things like that. And I'm like, one of the best things that my dad taught me is he taught me never, ever, ever quit. And I think it was like ingrained into my spirit at a very young age, never quit. Because, you know, if I asked my mom, I was like, was I kind of belligerent? Was I very, was I just a very hard-headed child? She's like, oh my gosh, yes, you were. But I never ever wanted to quit. And there were certain things in my life where I really did want to quit. And I always remember my dad saying, did you start? I'm like, yes. He's like, then don't you dare quit. Even if things aren't going your way, don't you dare quit. And I still remember that. And in fact, and I always say, you may win, you may see me fail, but you will never, ever see me quit. You will never, ever see me give up. That is my life story. You will never, ever see me give up. So just think of this. If you quit easily, think of, where did I learn how to quit? Who taught me how to quit on things? Because a lot of times this has been modeled in your everyday life. So let's go over your live question and answer. I'm going to take a couple questions that people had reached out to me on Instagram and had actually asked this. Okay. So here's the first one. And thank you very much for submitting your question. I appreciate your engagement. I really do. So, thoughts on saliva testing. I'm very acidic. How do I improve it? Okay. Now, how many of you have taken that little piece of pH paper, put it in your mouth, and it comes back and it's like, you're very, very acidic. Okay. In fact, I had a woman, she's like, oh, I've drank alkaline water for such a long period of time. And I'm like, that's probably why you had a lot of gastrointestinal issues, going on, because that environment needs to be very acidic, especially in the stomach, in order to kill off pathogens and help you break down your proteins. So what are my thoughts on saliva testing? Well, I went to the European Journal of Dentistry, and here's the title of this. This was just a couple of years ago. The title of the article is Evaluation of the Changes of Salivary pH Among Dental Students Depending on Their Anxiety Level. Okay. So here's what's interesting, and here's what they found. Increased acidity levels in saliva are registered when you are in a state of anxiety. During stress, fear, and anxiety, the secretion of saliva decreases and the concentration of hydrogen ions, which will lower down pH, make you more acidic, enhances its acidity. This is what's really interesting, okay? Now, I did the saliva testing, sometimes just as like, let's just go ahead and do some saliva testing. But this was before we were doing a lot of blood work and things like that. So anybody who does that is doing saliva testing. Usually what I'm saying is, or what I see is they're not even doing blood work, or they're not even doing blood work in depth. So then they're just kind of defaulting to the whole saliva method. But one of the things that I want to go over with you is this. When you are under stress, have you ever noticed that your mouth gets a little bit dry? My mouth is a little bit dry right now because, having a little bit of stress response. By the way, not plain water. But when you're under stress, you're going to notice that you get cotton mouth, or your mouth gets really dry, and that is going to concentrate, and it's going to make your saliva more acidic. So when people say, the doctor says I'm really acidic, I'm like, well, were you stressed when you took that? So the other thing is what's your oral health look like? Because you have an oral microbiome, you have a gastrointestinal microbiome, and a lot of times some of the things that we do with mouthwash and things like that, we just destroy it all the time. And in fact, look at mouthwash and how that can destroy the oral microbiome, how that can inhibit nitric oxide production, and how that can actually cause an increase in blood pressure. It's true, okay? So if you're concerned about your acidity, the only thing that I can tell you is this: get more testing. Please work with the Wellness Way doctor and look at physical, mental, and chemical stressors. And the other thing is too, is what the biggest thing that can change your oral microbiome is actually a lot of sugar, okay? You talk about cavities. People say, oh, sugar causes cavities. It actually doesn't. Sugar feeds the bacteria that then secretes certain acids that can then wear off your enamel, okay? So there's a lot of reasons why you might be acidic, and you just have to start looking deeper and get some testing done versus just, basing your health off of, some kind of pH testing strip that's coming from the pH testing that's just coming from some kind of testing strip or things like that. We had another question about red light therapy. What are your thoughts on red light therapy? So I know that, red light therapy has been used for a lot of skin conditions and things like that, whether it's eczema or whether it's the reduction of fine lines, try to stimulate collagen production and things like that. Just remember this, though, is with red light therapy, and again, I don't have any problems with people doing this, but they're not game changers. That's why people ask me about cold plunge, red light therapy, far infrared sauna, things like that. I'm like, yes, there's a benefit to doing some of those things, but those things aren't going to completely revolutionize your life. I've never seen anybody come out of a far infrared sauna and say, oh my gosh, my life is so much better. So just think of this. If you are using it because there's something happening in the skin, remember, usually what happens is that if there's something happening at the skin, there's something happening in the gastrointestinal system. And the reason why there's so many immune cells that are patrolling the barriers around your body. And so if there's a inflammatory response that's happening at a barrier, especially in the gastrointestinal system, there's also can be an inflammatory response at the skin. Now, I'm going to prove it to you. Because think of this, think of someone who has an IgE food allergy. Let's say they have an IgE peanut allergy and it's pretty severe. They will eat that and they'll break out in hives. So that's not a skin issue. That is an inflammatory, that's an immune system issue that's going on. So if you have poor skin, I would say this: how's your gastrointestinal health? Number two, the other thing that can really wreck the skin is chronic stress. If you don't believe me, look at someone who's not sleeping at all. Deprive yourself of 5 days of sleep and tell me what your skin looks like after that. Everyone talks about the things I'm going to put on my skin, but what's more important than that is the health of your gastrointestinal inflammation, your stress hormones. And then the other thing that I would say is what's your protein intake? Because remember, for collagen formation, you need protein. So what can help the skin? Can protein help the skin? Yes. It just can't be an inflammatory protein. That's going to be different per person because everybody has different inflammatory proteins as well. It just depends on how well you're able to actually break down food. I was in a conversation earlier today with a woman. She's having a lot of struggles with weight loss, and I get it and I understand it. But she also in the past had a lot of inflammatory reactions to certain proteins like chicken or beef or things like that, which meant she's got a real big problem with stomach acid. She happened also to be anemic as well, or having problems with anemia, which is stomach acid is vital for iron absorption, as well. But just think of this: healthy skin, look at a healthy gastrointestinal system, low stress, and enough protein consumption in order to be able to feed the skin. All of those things are going to be so, so important. So I will always say this: rather than always handle the basics versus always running towards the exotic. Biggest thing. Now, there's another great question too that said, my newest blood test shows lipoprotein little a at 746 and ApoB at 110. How do I reduce it? Okay. Now, I want to show you someone who had a real big problem with cholesterol, specifically metabolism. And when people are saying, the first thing that I'm going to say regarding lipoprotein little a is that it is an independent risk factor for atherosclerosis. Independent risk factor for atherosclerosis. Think of this, it's one of those, when we talk about tennis ball versus golf balls, Golf balls are heavy, small, and dense. Tennis balls are lighter, fluffier, and it's the golf balls that are really going to irritate the endothelial lining within your arterial system. And those are going to be some of the most atherogenic particles out there. So just think they're heavy, they're dense, and this can be an independent risk factor for atherosclerosis. Now, here's what's interesting though. Lipoprotein little a, there's also a genetic component to it as well. Doesn't mean that it can't be helped, because I've seen some people with very high lipoprotein little a, and after we've worked with them, it's gone back down to normal. So this is why working with the Wellness Way doctor is so important. And in fact, if you look at this, this is a lab of someone that we have been working with, and you can see that their LDL particles were at 3,000. This is back in February of 2023. Now, does that matter? Yes, it does, because think of this. The Dan Ryan Expressway that goes into Chicago, you're much more likely to get into an accident if there's more cars on this. So just think, a lot of traffic being shuttled in the arterial system, which means that there can be a lot more accidents that take place. So he started out at 3,000 and within a year brought it all the way down to 21, okay? Now, we also looked at apolipoprotein A1, apolipoprotein B, and also his small density LDL. So when you look at that, you can see how things have actually improved. And those are the things that we're actually looking at. We're looking at the number of particles. We're looking at particle size. You can see this lipoprotein little a is under control. And we're also looking at other factors like C-reactive protein. We're looking at their insulin markers. We're looking at their A1C, their blood sugars. Why do you think a doctor, if you have diabetes, why they immediately want to put you on a cholesterol medication? Because they realize that people with diabetes also have more atherosclerosis. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So biggest answer that I'm going to give you is this: always do foundational work. When people ask me a question, how do I lower it? I'm like, do you want me to write you a book? So always do the foundational work first, which is work with a Wellness Way doctor, then address it afterwards if needed. And usually some of the hidden problems are going to be your insulin levels. Do you guys know where they're at? Your A1C levels, do you know where those are at? Your C-reactive protein, even homocysteine as well. Now, there are some things that can help with it as well, but I never ever give it to people unless they've done the foundational work first. Things like ginkgo biloba, extended release niacin that helps so that it doesn't cause a lot of flushing, things like that, and even high dose vitamin C, which is going to be from a food known as camu camu. But we don't address that until after we do the foundational work to see if we even need to address that as well. It's kind of like testosterone. Okay. So if a guy comes to me, he's got low testosterone, I'm like, we're going to do the foundational things. We're not going to just go and dump a bunch of tribulus, a bunch of astragalus, a bunch of male glandulars into the matrix. We're going to see how it recovers first. Then once we've cleaned up a lot of those pathways, then we're going to say high dose of this will give you the most benefit from doing it. Okay. So always work on the foundational things first and foremost. Foundational things first and foremost are going to be inflammation. Okay. I want you to think about your cholesterol. We always talk about it, the inflammation talk, that the body doesn't mess up. It's not there trying to kill you. It's trying to help you survive and adapt. And so a lot of what the body is doing is trying to fix things. But the thing is you need to realize, what am I doing that's causing the body to do so much fixing? Okay. So that you don't force the body to adapt, and that long-term adaptation actually creates a disease process in the process. All right. So hopefully, guys, that makes sense. Now, someone also asked about, please tell me the most important benefits of castor oil. If you guys have heard of castor oil, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Okay. Now, are you a fan of castor oil? And I'm like, yes, we've used it for people in the past. But the thing with castor oil is this: castor oil is very hydrating, which is why if you take some castor oil and you put it on your eyes, you'll notice that it can take away the fine lines of the wrinkles. It's very hydrating, but it's not going to last forever. Okay. So am I a fan of castor oil? Yeah. I mean, like, I don't have any problems with people being on that, But again, it's not going to, it's always saying, please do the foundational things first. There's so many people that are out there that are trying to find the fix. I'm just going to do the fix, but do the foundational things first. So it can help with wrinkles, especially if you dab it onto the skin, specifically around the eyes. You'll notice that some people use it for liver detoxification. They'll make a castor oil pack and they'll place it around the liver, on the liver for 45 minutes to an hour. It also can be used as a laxative if you take it orally. But the biggest thing that I'm going to tell you is don't forget to do the foundational things first and foremost, okay? Now, a lot of times in detox, there's the option to use castor oil packs. And you know how many times I've told people to do it? Not that much, because it's the same thing of doing coffee enemas, and things like that. Is those are additions, and it's not the main crux of everything that we are doing. Okay, this is why I will say this. I say this with exercise as well. This isn't even my quote. This comes from Greg Glassman, who is the inventor of the whole CrossFit methodology of exercise, and he said this: master the basics. Master the basics, and when you feel like you've mastered them, go back and master them again, but this time pay more attention. Master the basics, and when you feel like you've mastered them, go back and master them again, but this time pay more attention. This is why we did a whole squat challenge, because the squat is a basic movement. What's interesting is that my son, who, Elias now, who is like 14 months old, he knows how to squat. We haven't taught him how to do it. And so he has that. The only way for him to lose it is for him to never use it, which is why you'll see a lot of kids at 6, 7 years of age, they no longer can squat. They've lost an innate movement. What's so interesting is that he knows how to deadlift. He can pick things up with perfect form, and he's literally 14 months of age, and he knows how to do it better than most people who are in their 30s or 40s. It's a gift that we were given. It's innate. And we lose it because we just fail to actually use it as well. So master, guys, the basics. And when you feel like you've mastered it, just like the squat, go back and learn it again, but this time pay even more attention to it. Now, I'm going to tell you this. There's no secret, recently discovered supplement or therapy that's going to dramatically move the needle, because dis-ease, or the lack of ease, has more than one cause. There's never just one cause to disease. So if you have hormone problems, there's never one thing that's going on. If you are having a problem with the digestive system, there's never just one thing that's just going to knock you out. There's usually more than one cause has to do with this, okay? So that's why you have to be able to master the basics. Master those basics especially. And this is why the inflammation talk, guys, is so important, okay? We're not trying to punish people by making you go to it, because we know that it will help you. And we know it's a vital link to connect the dots between here's what you need to do and here's where you need to head. So anytime I make a recommendation, you're like, okay, that makes sense as far as working on people get well, because there's more than one cause to disease. And so you have to handle, that's why we talk about chemical, mental, and physical, but there's a lot of nuance when it comes to handling that as well. And guys, if you want to work with me remotely, make sure that you go to the webinar. It's at the top of the page on Instagram. It's also the top of the page on Facebook. And also, if you're on YouTube, you see the link on our link tree, which will take you to a bunch of links. You'll be able to find it there as well. So guys, thank you guys very much. Let's take a couple of questions if we can. So go ahead. If you're watching right now on Instagram, I know that I'm going to scroll right past this, but go ahead and bring your questions. And while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go to Facebook, and let's answer a couple of questions coming from Facebook. Okay. Wow. We have people watching from New Hampshire. All right. How do I get my knees not to be so tight after an intense 20-mile hike? Tons of uphill, downhill, tons of very slick mud. It was challenging, fun. So I do to get healthier. So if you get tightness in your knees, the first thing that I would say is this is tough. Check your gait, number one. See how you are walking. And then also do a squat and see if you have any limitations. Because when people say, oh, my knees are kind of getting tight, I'm like, maybe it's trying to protect you, okay? Maybe it's trying to protect you from injury or things like that. And so that's why I'm really a big fan of the couch stretch, helping with your knees as well. Okay. All right. So thank you, Jackie. It's always a pleasure to see you. Kathy's watching from Sioux City. Can I still get my You Don't Know Squat t-shirt? Yes, you can go ahead and order it as well. You can order from our bonfire. If I sent you a gift card, check your email because it should be there if you won. If you won that, I know that we sent out probably 6 gift cards in order to be able to purchase a t-shirt. I can't remember who we gave that to without even looking that up. But if you won that, check your email because you have a $25 gift card in your mailbox that's just waiting for you to be able to get a t-shirt. So go ahead and do it. All right. Let's go to Instagram. And there's a great question from JPhil62. Love to know your thoughts on a carnivore diet for health. Okay, let's talk about the carnivore diet. Now, there's a lot of people who feel a lot better from being on a carnivore diet. But I want you also to look from an immune system perspective is this. The carnivore diet is the ultimate elimination diet. And so if people are eating high amounts of meat, bacon, maybe a tiny bit of fruit, basically what you're doing is you're eliminating a lot of IgG food allergies that you might have. Yes, we do see people who have beef allergies. I've seen chicken allergies, not very often, but their stomach is usually really not doing very well if you see that's going on. So do I have a problem with people being on a carnivore diet? Long-term, yes, I do. And that's why people say, oh, but I felt so good going on a carnivore diet. I'm like, yes. And they think that this is going to carry me through for the next 2 or 3 years, but there's going to be some changes that are going to take place being on a carnivore diet. I think that you need to have a lot more fiber. I really do think that you should look at fiber. And if you are thinking about going on a carnivore diet, think about why that is. And in fact, I've actually put some people mostly on a carnivore diet, but that had to do a lot with their food allergy testing, their stool testing and things like that. And they got better, from doing it. So carnivore diet, the reason why is you remove a lot of immune response from the gastrointestinal system. And that's why people say, yeah, my digestive system's so much better. And I'm like, great, do some tests and prove it to me that it's something that you probably should do long-term. So I'm not a fan of doing it long-term, mainly because there's a lot, you're going to be missing long-term on a lot of things, specifically fiber and things like that. Okay. All right. So let's go back to Facebook. Kathy says, are the apple cider vinegar pills just as good as the bottled apple cider vinegar? Okay. I would actually say that the apple cider vinegar, it depends on where you're getting it from. Now, Wellness Way, we have straight betaine hydrochloric acid and then a cut of apple cider vinegar and betaine hydrochloric acid. It's not going to be as strong, but eventually we always move people to apple cider vinegar. But a lot of times they just can't tolerate it very well. It's very acidic. So I'm more of a fan of the pills because you can take the pill, you swallow it, and it gets broken open within the stomach. Some people just can't tolerate the acidity of apple cider vinegar, especially if they have a lot of esophageal inflammation that's going on. But if everything is healthy, it can be just as good. And in fact, eventually we actually switch people over to just doing some apple cider vinegar and tell them, please don't let it touch your teeth because it's acidic and it can actually start to wear away at your enamel. Okay. Dab165, just ask your question again. I think I might've missed it. It says instead of statins. Okay. Thank you very much, Kathy, for that question. Okay. All right. So from Facebook, how much, I'm going to guess you're saying berberine can a person take? How much berberine can a person take? Usually if you're talking about berberine, because people ask me, are berberines, is it the nature's Ozempic? I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Berberine helps with glucose sensitivity, like metformin, without all of the massive gastrointestinal issues. If you don't believe me, go to WebMD and look at the reviews of berberine or look at metformin. And it's kind of sad and kind of funny at the same time because people talk about explosive diarrhea, things like that from doing it. Okay. So how much can a person take? A lot of times there can be a weight loss effect from taking berberine. I would actually say this, a great place to start off with is probably the best berberine that's not as strong as Oregon grape. And you could probably be taking like a half teaspoon 3 times a day and work yourself up to even doing 3 teaspoons per day after a month or two. Um, but just remember this, Oregon grape is really good for your gastrointestinal system, especially your microbiome. It's going to be a little bit better than like Golden Seal. Golden Seal can be a little bit rougher on people, especially if you're taking it long term. But I've recommended 3 teaspoons per day for people. Um, um, but we've also have tested them first. Okay. All right. Instagram. Let me know what your questions are. I know someone had. Oh, good question on Instagram. I see this. Marushka. Do those vibration stands work for lymphatic drainage, and does the frequency matter? Okay. So if you're talking about vibration therapy, we do use those in the office, but we're also applying body weights, head weights, and things like that. Does it help with the lymphatic drainage? Yes. You know, it also helps with lymphatic drainage? Movement, like walking or bounding, jump roping. You know, any kind of movement is going to help with lymphatic drainage, especially if you're talking about the legs. Vibration can help because it causes some muscular contraction. The frequency absolutely does matter. So you want to have it vibrate around 30 hertz. If you get it vibrate too high, it can be damaging. Vibrate it too low, and it can also be damaging. But about 30 hertz, that's why if you're buying a vibration platform, it should be set at about platforms that we have already preset at 30 hertz. That's why if you induce a high vibration on people, this is true with like diesel motors, why you see so many men, they drive, diesel engines and stuff, and they have a lot of wrist damage, or their wrists are just super inflexible and whatnot. And it can cause a lot of damage, the scarring, especially of like the ligament that crosses over in the carpal canal, and can cause some median nerve encroachment. The doctors just want to go in and they just cut it, and it works. And then it comes back, heals with scar tissue. And then that's why it just comes back. So the frequency is very important. That's why I always will say, you will always get what you pay for. Okay. If you're going on Amazon for a $150 vibe plate, it's probably not even set at the right frequency. It can actually cause some more issues and cause some more damaging issues as well. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that great question. From Instagram, Weddle72, daily painkillers for arthritis, want to be able to stop. All right. So if you're doing daily painkillers for arthritis, the first thing that I would tell you is which joints and why are they so inflamed? So, again, this is why I work with the Wellness Way doctor and make sure that they can know what your inflammatory levels are or what's causing so much pain, so much inflammation. But just remember this, worse than stop moving. You ever notice as soon as you stop moving something and then you try to move it, how much more painful it actually is? This is why I think a lot of problems that people are dealing with have to do with when they have problems with immobility. It has to do with they're just not moving enough. The more that you move, the more it's going to help you. However, if your joints are always inflamed, figure out why your joints are inflamed, because you can't keep taking painkillers forever. There's always going to be I don't even like to call it a side effect as much as we just call it an effect. It's an effect. Look at things like Bextra. Look at things, some of the other ones. Gosh, the name of them escapes me, but some of the same types of drugs as Bextra, and how many problems that it caused with things like heart attacks and things like that. It's absolutely incredible. They knew that it was going to cause a problem, but they actually released them anyway, knowing that the profits from the drugs will get lawsuits, but we can cover it easily from the money that we make from all of the drugs as well. It's really, really sad. Vioxx and Bextra. Big time problems as well. Okay. All right. What is your opinion on APO genotype result of 3 and 4? I'm not sure I understand all of that question. Tracy, thank you for asking it though. All right. Any suggestions for a mild concussion. Okay. Yes. Just remember this, anything that hits the head can damage the neck. So the first thing I tell people is if they've had a concussion is make sure that you're getting an x-ray in order to look for stability in the upper part of the neck and to see what's going on. You guys, how many of you have hit your head? And the other thing is too, is if you look at people who've had a major concussion, you start to see things like hormone changes and things like that start to take place because a major concussive force can actually injure the pituitary gland. But if you look at a lot of people who've got multiple mild concussions, especially if you look at NFL football players and things like that, look at the ones that are starting to get certain types of chiropractic adjustments and how much better they're actually feeling. Because remember, anything in which I have a concussive force that hits the head, there's also going to be some trauma, especially to the upper part of the neck as well. So thank you very much for that. Omega-3 fatty acids are going to be very important. And also look at what happens after concussions and what it does to the gastrointestinal barrier as well. Okay. All right. Donna Spencer from Facebook asked this: what type of toothpaste do you recommend? I recommend anything that doesn't have fluoride and also doesn't contain sodium lauryl sulfate. Okay. Sodium lauryl sulfate is what makes it foam. And then the fluoride is supposed to help strengthen your teeth. I'm going to tell you this. I haven't used fluoride in, gosh, probably close to 20 years. And I've had a lot less cavities than when I was actually using fluoride. Just look at fluoridosis. Too much fluoride actually weakens the teeth, as well. Okay. So that's why you got to look at. But the best thing too that I would say, even more than like your toothpaste, is just make sure that please floss. Please floss every single day. Don't leave these, some of these teeth, the stuff from what you're eating in the gum line, because it's going to irritate, it's going to cause an inflammatory response. I think that flossing is more important than even brushing your teeth, and also not eating tons of sugar and things like that. So regarding oral health, have you guys remember Trident said, yeah, it helps to prevent cavities? Like how could Trident gum that contains things like aspartame and things like that actually prevent cavities? And it didn't. There was nothing in there that helped to prevent cavities. The reason why they could say that is because your saliva actually has antibacterial properties. So you chew the gum, you're not adding any sugar, and it's causing saliva. And the saliva helps to kill off some of the overgrowth of the bacteria, things like that. All right. So let's go to Instagram. Dab 165, colonoscopy and pathology both show inflammation. How can I find out what it's from? It's not on any hormones. Okay. The first thing I would do, Dab 165, is please work with a Wellness Way doctor. Go to thewellnessway.com, work with them. And if you are having some issues and you're seeing that you have an abnormal pap smear, that's most likely caused some kind of viral infection that's going on. And then also colonoscopy, there's something digestive that's going on. Just remember this: when you look at cancers are usually caused by some kind of irritation. It can be due to stomach acid, it can be due to infection. And that's why when we say HPV, it can be an HPV infection. But even that is that your colon's starting to adapt to what's going on. And so figure out what is irritating the colon. And then also there's something immune going on that would cause an abnormal pap smear as well. And it's not necessarily going to be hormone related as well. Okay. So thank you very much for saying that. But that's why, especially when you're talking about an abnormal pap smear, is there an infection that's going on that the body's having a hard time, having a really hard time trying to get under control. Okay. All right. Curtis Brooks from Facebook. My wife had dry eyes and used vitamin A oral drops. It helped, but now she has dry lips. Are they related? Too much vitamin A now. Okay. Probably not a huge fan of taking oral vitamin A drops. You know what has the most amount, the food that has the most amount of vitamin A? Liver. Okay. Now, if she has chronically dry eyes, just figure out if there's something that's irritating the eyes. Chances are if it's irritating the eyes, it's probably irritating the sinuses. It's probably irritating the lungs, things like that. However, there could be an autoimmune response like Sjogren's that can cause dry mouth, dry eyes, and things like that. And so you got to make sure that you test for it, and you got to get that under control as well. Okay. But if there's dry lips, I would probably say, what's her fat levels? And also, is there a lot of stress that's going on that can make her very B vitamin deficient as well? Okay. Even if you look at low B vitamins, look at cheilitis or like dry cracked lips, especially here, you can get it in the front. And that can be due to a vitamin B deficiency as well. All right, Ashley Rulin, fasting said it had many benefits. I have major inflammation, would like to try fasting, but I pause and breastfeeding. Is it safe for everyone? Okay, Ashley, if you are breastfeeding, I wouldn't do it. Okay. Now, here's the thing with fasting, guys. And if you're on Instagram, let's see if we can take one more question. Is that people think that fasting lowers inflammation. And I'm like, if you feel better from fasting, then I took away all of my food for 3, 4, 5 days, then of course my joint pain is going to go down because I haven't introduced anything that I can have an immune reaction in my gastrointestinal system. Okay. And this would not be recommended for someone who is breastfeeding unless you want to lose your milk supply pretty quickly. But if you have positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, POTS, then chances are probably there's something massively inflammatory that's going on and your adrenals just can't keep up with what's going on. So you're going to have a hard time as far as with adrenaline and things like that. And go back and watch the videos that I've talked about people thinking they all have adrenal fatigue, when in reality, what they really do is they have adrenal downregulation that's due to an inflammatory response as well. So fasting, guys, I've talked about fasting quite a bit. There's really nothing that's like major or miraculous that goes by. If people did a 3-day fast and they came back to me and like, I lost 28 pounds, I'm like, congratulations, you were so inflamed. It's just you lost a bunch of water weight, or you had so much glycogen stores in your liver and your muscles that you just lost all that. You lost all your water. If you feel massively better from fasting, then chances are there's probably a lot of food allergies that's going on. Your digestive system's probably not doing well. Here's a telltale sign. If someone says, I feel better when I don't eat, there's probably something that's really irritating the gastrointestinal system. So people will avoid eating, and that's why they tend to feel really bloated and things like that. Okay. All right. So Trenger, Ike Folgier, I probably mispronounced it. I think you are the one who submitted one of the questions. Thank you very much for doing that from Instagram. What blood markers to test if inflammation is in the body? I will tell you this, probably high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Now it's a non-specific test, so it's not going to tell you exactly where it's coming from. But if you are carrying a lot of body fat, you'll have higher higher C-reactive protein. If you have an active infection that's going on, you'll have elevated C-reactive protein. I've had people come back and they were at like 48. And I'm like, did you have an infection when you take the blood test? They're like, yes, I was sick. So it will elevate during an acute infection and it will then start to go back down, but you don't want it hanging around at a high level for a long period of time. And this is like anything over 3, you just don't want it hanging around for a high level because, and they have proven this, is that people with autoimmune disease, they're going to have higher levels of inflammation. They're going to have higher levels of C-reactive protein. And they also have more heart disease. They have more heart attacks as well. That's why there's an inflammatory component, obviously, to all of that. Okay. All right. So, yes, if you feel, Kathy, if you feel like always feel awesome when you fast, remember this, is that the magic's not in the fast. The magic is actually not eating and lowering down the immune system response. And that's why there might be so many gastrointestinal issues that are going on. That's why, having enough stomach acid can be so important because you're actually breaking down your food the way that you're supposed to. So if you feel better from always fasting, then chances are check the gastrointestinal system, get a food allergy test, please do a stool test, and figure out why you feel so much better. If you introduce food and you get bloated and you start getting swelling and things like that, remember that's an immune reaction. That's an immune reaction that's taking place. You started getting skin irritation, my joints are hurting a little bit more. That's an inflammatory reaction. And it's not that inflammation necessarily is bad, but you don't want to create it if it's not needed. It's like saying, hey, if I get a scab on my knee from falling down, you're going to have an inflammatory response. But when it becomes counterproductive is if I keep falling on my knee and I keep creating an injury that the body still has to have an acute inflammatory response towards. So just because you say that, hey, inflammation can be good, doesn't mean that you want to keep causing it all the time. So always think immune and always think stress, immune, and stress. Two biggest things that are going to cause an issue, especially when it comes to women as well. All right, Instagram, any other questions? So I answered a question, C-react, high sensitivity, C-reactive protein, also homocysteine. Can also too, and we've seen people with I've seen someone so high in homocysteine. I've seen a couple of people really high in homocysteine. I've seen over 30, I've seen over 50, and this person was in bed, just basically bedridden, high amounts of like very bad fibromyalgia, depression, terrible fatigue, things like that. We actually got to the point where she was able to go out and exercise, and she started exercising, which was really good. Okay. Does hot or cold water affect digestion? I would say body temperature would probably be the best, but it's one of those things that's not the most important thing. That's not. I know people talk about cold water, helps you lose weight or whatnot. And this is why I will always go back to these things, is always handle the big things. Always handle the big things more than anything else. And I'm going to leave you with one observation as well, okay? Now, here's a question. I was hoping someone would ask me, do you talk to men and women differently? I was like, yes, very differently. Because men typically are really, their testosterone makes them high ego. So I'll be a little bit harsher with men than with women. And so this is geared more towards, it has more of a slant towards a man more than anything else, okay? And this is just an observation. This is just an observation, okay? A clinical observation. And again, I've been in practice for over 20 years now, 20 and a half years almost. And here's what my observation is to stop calling your condition mine or my, or giving it some kind of cute nickname, okay? Like my fibromyalgia, we call it my fibro. We give it like this little nickname with it, and it almost becomes our identity. It almost becomes our pet. And I will say this, once you start calling it mine, and if you do that enough, then you're going to start to own it, okay? And if you start to own your condition, it will slowly creep in and it will start to become your identity. Okay, it will start to become your identity, and it will actually become your friend. And I've seen a lot of people who will sabotage themselves because their depression, their fibromyalgia, they call it mine, my, and they don't, it becomes their identity. Okay, so once you start doing that repeatedly, it's going to slowly creep in. It's going to become your identity. You are bigger than that. You were bought at a price. You are bigger than that. Do never find your identity in your illness. Never find your identity in your illness. In fact, I tell my wife that. Don't ever let me call anything my or mine. Don't ever let me call anything my or mine. And I don't let her call anything my or mine. And my wife was racked with illness. And I never let her call it mine or my. Because I never wanted it to become her identity. And the good thing is this never was her identity. And that's one of the reasons why at 47 and 43 years of age, why we have a 16-month-old, not even 14-month-old that's running around now, okay? You are bigger than that. You are better than that. You just need to find someone who knows how to look deeper and to look at things from a different perspective, okay? Last question I'm going to answer. How do I find a Wellness Way doctor in my area? Here's how you do it. You're going to go to the Wellness Way, just type in thewellnessway.com, and then you'll see at the front it'll say find a doctor, and then you'll just put in your zip code. When you find your zip code, you'll be able to see some of the doctors that are closest to you. Now, I'm also going to say this: if you're too far away, many of the doctors will work with you remotely. So there's a way to do that. And so just find who's closest to you and reach out and see if they're currently taking on remote patients if you're coming from too far away. I've had people who have driven 300 miles to come to me. I've had people who have asked me, I'm going to fly up and come see you. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to be doing the chiropractic, we have a great place to stay, and come up for a week. We can get your blood work done. We can work with you remotely, after that. But you can take some of those physical stressors off by seeing me, and staying into there. There's wonderful hotels here in Yorkville. Yes, they do actually exist. All right. But yes, you can do that. But just remember this, guys, is don't let any condition become your identity, because once it does, then people are very afraid of living life, being healthy without something that has actually become who they are. So you are not someone with depression. That's not who you are. You're not someone with fibromyalgia. That's not who you are. Don't ever let anything that you have become who you are, because it will become your friend and you'll never, ever want to get rid of it. That's just my 2 cents. All right. All right, guys. So remember the inflammation talk coming up tomorrow night, Tuesday, and also that webinar, the inflammation webinar coming up. You can go to the top of the page if you're on Instagram, YouTube. You'll see it on Facebook. Go to the top of the page. You can watch that remotely, and towards the end, we'll also have that link to schedule a discovery call with me. Yes, it is. I saw 2 people actually schedule it today, which is really awesome. I can't wait to be able to talk to them in person. So guys, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for the likes. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for following me. I'm so humbled that you would follow me. I don't consider myself super interesting, but one thing I always do is I always work hard and I always study a lot, because I want to be the best at what I do. And that's why I work so hard. I'll continue to do so as well. So guys, thank you very much for spending some time with me. I love you all. I appreciate you guys tremendously. Thank you guys so much. I wish you nothing but the best. I wish you that you find all of your answers, and I wish you good health as well. So guys, be well, be blessed, and remember who you are.